Hi, everybody. This is Chuck Bear. I'm a partner with the Lapine Group, and welcome back to part 3 of the business of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And today we're going to talk about some real-world solutions using blockchain technology. This is an area that there's been a lot of talk about this, right? Using blockchain to solve different business problems, a whole range of them. I talked a little bit in part 1 of, frankly, a lot of them are ideas are proposing to solve problems that really a blockchain doesn't address. So there's that issue. And there's also, I think, some other factors that are affecting why maybe some of these ideas are not happening so fast and certain areas and certain businesses are moving faster than others. In other words, who's going first, right? So I think there's a pretty simple dynamic in play here. If you think about you have an idea for a blockchain solution that might solve a problem, and there's some level of value that comes from that, and let's just say from low to high. Some deliver more value potentially than others, right? And then you've got barriers. So what are the things that would prevent you from moving to that new blockchain solution? Value really tends to come from two things. One is, can you come up with some new revenue opportunity from this? Or can you gain some efficiency? And frankly, a lot of the blockchain solutions do tend to be B2B oriented solutions where you're trying to cut administrative costs, maybe reconciliation, different bookkeeping. So efficiency does tend to be a focus here as opposed to getting into new markets, although both are potentially possible. Barriers come in all shapes and sizes. And I think when you think about blockchain solutions, some common ones include legal challenges and ambiguity. Frankly, a lot of large public companies simply can't do things if there's ambiguity around the legality of it. And also, there's a lot of ideas out there that require legal recognition of the blockchain as the official records of things. And that's something that can happen, but it's something that happens with time. You can't just adopt a solution and then wait for regulators to recognize it. It needs to, be recognized before you want to invest in making a solution like that. Another big barrier in doing these solutions, frankly, is potentially powerful stakeholders. Again, blockchain tends to be a efficiency gain kind of solution. That efficiency comes from somewhere, and especially if you're talking about an industry where there are middlemen that the blockchain solution might disintermediate, they won't be excited about it. And in some industries, the middlemen are quite powerful. So that can be, I think, a big factor where you're looking at a space where it seems very obvious, wow, you could use a blockchain to really change this and make it a lot more effective, but it's just not happening. And I think this is a factor that's not talked about. No one wants to admit to being that powerful stakeholder that's holding things back, but it's real. Technical complexity also, you talk about these things. Obviously, something that's technically simple to accomplish will happen faster than something that requires a lot of development work. Usability. So this is, I think, whenever you talk about consumers using cryptocurrency, and I touched on this before, the whole handling of private keys and understanding this, it's difficult, and the usability is not quite there for normal people. So, the solutions that are kind of B2B interactions where we're connecting systems and not asking people to actually directly interact with this will be easier to do than things where we have to make this something that a non-technical person can use. Prioritization. Frankly, this is just the reality of any industry and any space. Is a lot of stuff's going on. And yeah, maybe you got a big opportunity to shift your whole industry to some kind of blockchain-based solution, but it's not going to happen until that is pretty high on the priority list. And, in most industries and functional areas, there's always, the burning fire and the most urgent thing. And until really investing in a blockchain solution comes on a list of things that drive enough value and are worth the investment of time, it doesn't happen. And just plain old resistance to change. This one, it's a little hard to put your finger on, but certain industries and certain companies have a bigger challenge with this than others. And again, it's just a real factor that can affect this. So, some of that is, the things that are going to happen first are going to be these, right? You don't have many barriers and there's a lot of value to be had. And I think this really explains, and I want to talk through some examples of things that have been done that are actually relatively simple. They don't really have any regulatory implication, and usually they're closed systems where there's not a powerful stakeholder that doesn't want it to happen. And then I think what comes next, though, probably is even these that are high value, maybe even higher value, but the barriers are big. And the thing is, you have to clear the path. And actually, you see a lot of that activity in this space now. This is the whole, lawyers and working with regulators trying to figure out, how do we do these things in a blockchain space that'll be legally recognized? Those kinds of activities and work to make it possible to actually implement these solutions. And then, these, now when you get into something that's relatively low value and low barriers, maybe you do it later or maybe not. I think something that may happen is as first mover solutions are made and these sort of clear the path ones, often you end up laying the groundwork for this. And okay, at this point, we might as well just do it. Even though it doesn't deliver huge value, we've already done the groundwork for some other area. And then lastly, you've got this bucket of maybe never. If the barriers are too high and there's not real value there, you may not see blockchain ever come into that space. So I think that's important to understand why certain things have moved ahead, why other things will probably be next, and why some things may never actually happen. So let's have a look at a specific example. So American Express membership rewards. This is a project that there's been a good amount of press on. I need to disclose my company, Lapine Group, does a lot of work with American Express. We did not work on this project, and we do not have any insider information at all on it. So what I'm going to show you is entirely based on press releases and interviews with some executives at Amex. So what they've done is build a solution for their membership rewards program, and in particular, one that's a bonusing program. So let's just say that I'm Hatco, a merchant, I sell hats, right? And I am in the American Express membership rewards bonus program. If you shop at Hatco, you get double points. And this is fairly easy to accomplish. Me as Hatco, I am paying for those points, but all we need to do is if the transactions come into Amex, Amex knows they're from Hatco, they know that I'm in this program, we award double the points on that transaction. But what if I want to offer 500 bonus points if you buy a fedora, right? But it's just the fedora, just this fedora. And what actually often happens in industry is maybe this manufacturer is wanting to do a promotion and they're willing to share some of the costs with me, Hatco, to do this. So, all sounds great. The problem is the way the payment network works now. If I come to Hatco and, I'm going to buy a Newsboy hat as well, that transaction comes through and it doesn't have any line item detail. I just know an amount. I don't know if there was a fedora on there or something else. So this is the challenge with issuing points on something that is a line item purchase. And again, I did not work on this project, but I have worked on that problem with Amex and some other clients of, how do you track a line item purchase and, take some action on it. And here's what they came up with a blockchain solution. So we have the regular payment network can only take this overall transaction cost and convey it. But we build this blockchain and have a smart contract. The smart contract will define this reward that we want to give, the 500 bonus points. So at the same time that we send the general transaction through the payment network of the 4395, we also can fire off a transaction to the blockchain with the transaction ID there to tie it together. Right, so I'm not sending any personal information. This transaction ID is a one-time use random number that only Amex will be able to decode on the other side. But we've added information. We've added the fact that it is a fedora that was purchased, and the fedora itself cost $24. And the smart contract interprets that. It knows, okay, fedora is important. That's worth 500 points. In this case, the $24 purchase price is not important, so it's kind of ignored, but it could be a factor in this contract. And it basically turns that into a message to American Express that says, hey, with this transaction, there was a fedora purchased. The 500 points needs to happen. And Amex, based on the transaction ID, can bring those two back together and award the points. So what this does is it makes this kind of point program available to smaller merchants on a lower setup cost basis. So they would do these, but they had to be set up one at a time with great cost and complexity. So it wasn't really accessible to a lot of people in the program, this makes it, it's still not simple. You have to develop these smart contracts. And by the way, another feature of this, Amex can look in these and verify that nobody is doing anything that they shouldn't. And frankly, at first, they made pretty clear they are helping the merchants that are doing these to develop these smart contracts because it's a new skill set. But once you've learned to do this, you can issue these programs, again, relatively fast and easy compared to the way it had to be done before. All right, Walmart leafy green supply chain. So this is another one that's gotten a lot of press. We don't do work with Walmart, but same story. This is gleaned from press releases and interviews with executives there. Their challenge was, if you recall, there was a lot of bad news out of Walmart about food safety, basically greens that were contaminated. And the challenge is, you've got a farm and that ships things to a packaging center, that ships things to a distribution center, that goes on to a store and eventually gets purchased. And at least these first few steps, there's probably tracking in each of these things. The farm is keeping track of things, the first shipping company is keeping track of what's going on, the packaging, but they're all separate companies, separate systems. So when they have a problem, it was taking Walmart up to 20 days to trace a product back from the time of purchase to where did they come from? And what does that imply about other things that are in the supply chain? So solution here is very simple. It's a blockchain that, again, these transactions we talked about before, the transaction does not need to be necessarily moving any kind of value. It can just sort of be checking in and creating a record that something happened. So this blockchain does just that. A farm ships a lot of stuff to the packaging plant and they record that on the blockchain. Likewise, when the packaging plant has done their thing and broken things down into a crate, they send a message to the blockchain saying that happened. Distribution, same thing. They're going to break these crates down into pallets that eventually get to stores and are items on the shelves, right? So now what you have is one common place where all this information is. And again, so long as we're comfortable that these participants have not compromised their keys and nobody's in there trying to cheat it, we can all feel comfortable these records are accurate and up to date. When there's a problem, Walmart can come in, have a look, and roll this back and just say, all right, wait, actually, we got a problem here with something that was purchased at the store, and we trace it back, and actually it was at this plant, and this crate must have had a problem, right? And we can identify that, and that just cascades down. We know now everything that needs to be pulled out of the supply chain below this. And interestingly, this product right now, as far as I know, Walmart's the main user of it, but this is an IBM product meant to be an industry solution. So potential here, with Walmart, a lot of their supply chain is proprietary. In other words, this farm might only grow for Walmart, packaging plant also, and so on. But for the broader industry, this also allows for farms and packaging plants. These products may end up at different retail outlets, and you can trace this back, and without even needing to know who are the companies that got those other crates and pallets, you can trace it back and identify what needs to be pulled for them and send the message to the blockchain without ever needing to know who they are. So again, that's not part of the Walmart solution, but I think it's an interesting possibility. But again, here I think they've come up with a very, again, technically not that complicated. The big thing they needed was a common way to keep records that everybody could feel comfortable with. And that's what they've accomplished here. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll get into what's going on with related services and how they're supporting the space. Thanks for listening.